Good afternoon, Johnny.
Howdy, partner.
How are you today? Happy Tuesday.
It is a happy Tuesday. I'm having to learn right now before our call. I'm learning about company culture because the Cope Notes team is growing and I'm not a corporate manager. So I'm having to educate myself on like weekly brainstorming sessions and encouraging people to share about their personal life. And it's kind of cool to see it
Awesome.
from that angle.
Yeah, the journey of an entrepreneur is forever learning, right? We're always learning. There's always something to be learned and mastered. I'm so grateful that you're here. I had the good fortune of coming across you on LinkedIn, and we connected, and I love the work that you're doing. So I was so grateful and really excited to share Cope Notes with the world and you and your story. So thank you so much for saying yes to being here today.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what I'm doing, Johnny, and for the audience, is what I'm doing with Michelle's Conversations That Matter is I'm really out to elevate the conversation about mental health, to have people tell their stories and hopefully inspire other people and even educate folks on different types of mental illness, because I think the more open dialogue that we have about mental health, the less the stigma will be so prevalent. So when I meet amazing people like you doing great work, having a life of advocacy, it makes most sense for me to talk to you and share you with my audience. So can you, for the audience, Johnny, tell everyone who you are, where you live, and what you do?
My name is Johnny Crowder. I live in Tampa, Florida. And what do I do? I go to car shows on the weekends. I play guitar sometimes. I run a mental health company. I tour in a metal band, and I have a dog named Pepperoni Pizza.
No
A
way.
little snapshot into my life right now, yeah.
Wait, pepperoni pizza?
I love that that's the thing that you stuck to out of everything. That's my favorite part. Her legal name is Pepperoni Pizza Jr.
Oh my, that's very specific.
And her middle name is Peppercini. Her name is
Oh,
Pepperoni Peppercini Pizza Jr.
wow. Okay. That's awesome. But isn't it too many syllables for a dog?
She doesn't respond to anything anyway. She's still happy, so no matter what we call her, she won't answer.
That's awesome. Johnny, can you tell us, before we went live, you were reminding me that you have spent many years doing advocacy for mental health before Cope Notes. So what had you get so connected to mental health advocacy? And could you take a minute to maybe share with us your mental health story?
Yes. So questions like this always trip me up. Like, what's your mental health story? And I think it is your whole life. There's no part of your life that's independent from mental health. And that might sound like a cop out to some people, but other people will go, I know exactly what you're talking about. Really, I never knew that advocacy was a thing or that it was important for years and years of my life. So I grew up in an abusive household, drugs and alcohol in the home. I made several attempts on my own life, which I am thankful were unsuccessful. And I started treatment in high school. I went to school for psychology. And throughout all of this time, I'm like, tortured, having like a terrible, genuinely tormented. I felt absolutely awful 24/7. And never did I know that there was anybody else who felt like that. I thought I was a total screw up, that I just, picked the short straw and my life is just this way. And around college-ish, it was like a year and a half into college, a year into college. And I was getting my psych degree because I wanted to become a clinician to help people who felt like me. But I was convinced there probably weren't many people who felt like that at all. And I got involved with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, in Orlando, Florida. I went to UCF. And that changed everything for me because I told them, yeah, I'm in school to become a clinician to help people. And they're like, you don't need to be a doctor to help people. Have you heard of advocacy and peer support? And I was like, so my whole life changed when I found out that I didn't need to be perfect before I helped somebody else.
Amazing. Wow. And NAMI is powerful. I think everyone should know about NAMI, their website, and what they offer, because that's like fundamental. You know, I love their organization, everything they stand for. Um, so that is what led you to your advocacy work. But then tell us the story about Cope Notes, and like, how did that come to be, and why are you so passionate about it?
So the long version is, if you want to go to YouTube and type in Johnny Crowder, I have a TED Talk in which I talk about neuroscience, how your brain works, and then also how I came up with Cope Notes, like where the idea came from. But the short version and like the dirty, like gritty, ugly version is I was doing peer support and I was getting super worn out. And it was all volunteer, so I'm not getting paid for this. So I'm working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And then I'm doing volunteer peer support and advocacy like after hours on the weekends during my lunch break. And I was wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, why don't we do an online version of this?
Mm-hmm.
So I made something called Not a Therapist, which you can't look up anymore because it doesn't exist. And I ran that for about a year thinking that the only problem was that it was in person and I needed to make it virtual. But then I realized even a virtual platform can break if enough people use it. So I was like, crap, I need to start over and make a real peer support resource that isn't limited by my time.
Right.
So Cope Notes it's ultimately like the third version of something I've been trying to build for years and years. And the thinking is, how do we remove barriers to care? How do we make it really easy for people to work on their mental health every day? And how can we serve like a bajillion people at once without anything exploding?
So what is it? Tell us about it.
So Cope Notes, what you can do if you're watching this or listening to this, go to copenotes.com and you'll see all of the information there. But essentially what we do is we're sending daily text messages to improve mental and emotional health. So all of the texts are written by peers with lived experience. They are reviewed by mental health professionals, and then they're sent to your phone at random times to surprise your brain and interrupt those negative thought patterns so that over time your brain learns to think healthier thoughts.
So you're helping to almost retrain the brain and help people not go too far down the rabbit hole. It's like proactive mental push-ups.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. Think about how many people right now, including myself, so I'm not counting myself out of this. Think about how many people right now, if you ask them, what did you do for your mental health today?
Right.
And they would say, well, I guess probably nothing. I don't know, probably nothing. And then you say, okay, well, what did you do yesterday? They say, well, I guess probably nothing yesterday too. And then you say, well, what's your plan to do something for your mental health tomorrow? And they're like, I wasn't really thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's the problem we're trying to solve. If you can engage with one positive mental or emotional health prompt, one message, one piece of advice or encouragement, a psychology fact, an exercise, whatever that thing is, once per day, at least you'll never go a full 24 hours of neglecting your mental health. And I did that for like 2 decades.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I know I feel guilty if I don't exercise, right? Like we know we need to exercise physically to feel better. And that could also help our mental health, but I don't think we're dedicating any time to taking care of our mental health. So I like this.
And the part of the problem though is time. Like, you know, if you were to approach my 14-year-old self, so I started therapy when I was 15. That was when I started like formal treatment. So if you were to approach my 14-year-old suicidal, self-harming, hallucinating, angry, punching holes in walls self, and you said, hey, you should consider engaging in some mental health supports, I would say, oh, let me guess my list of 100 reasons why I won't do that. And one of those reasons was time. I don't know my schedule. I don't know, I don't have a lot of time to put towards that. So the thinking behind Cope Notes is, okay, you don't have time. You can't remember to use it. You don't want to book appointments because you don't know what your schedule is going to look like. Fine. We'll text you. We'll do it. You don't have to remember. You don't have to book an appointment. You don't have to set aside time. And the thinking is, I said this to my friend the other day about green beans. I said, if you ate one serving of green beans every night with dinner, it would be a lot healthier than eating 7 pounds of green beans once a month.
Yeah.
And that's what people do with mental health. I think if I do 1 hour of something once a month, then I'll take care of it. And I say, no, it's better to spend 45 seconds every day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Cause I think, so taking like the adults and even like my female friends, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to go have a spa day. Like I'm going to take a day and go to the spa. And how many times you come back from taking a day, a mental health day or a day at the spa, and the next day, like you feel a little bit better, but you're not better because you know what? Like you're not doing something consistently every day. You're ignoring it, and then you're trying to resolve it through a spa day or a day off or doing whatever. And it's so important what you're saying. And I love the text approach because it is a daily dose that has you sort of nurturing and taking care of your brain along the way.
Yeah, I totally relate to the spa day thing because my biggest problem when I was in therapy was, especially when I first started, I would go to therapy and I have a great session. I was like, all right, good game, coach. And then I'm on my way out. And for 6 days and 23 hours, I was engaged in the worst mental habits. I was thinking terribly negative, self-critical, doom and gloom thoughts all the time. And then I'd go to therapy and I go, what the heck? I did my hour of therapy. Why am I not better?
Yeah.
And I realize your brain defaults to habits so much that thinking healthier thoughts and interrupting negative thought patterns has to become a habit. Like, if you walk into the bathroom and you flip on the light, you're not thinking of doing that.
Yeah.
You do it because it's a habit, and you can train your brain to interrupt negative thought patterns in the same way.
That's awesome. So how long has Cope Notes been around, and who are you serving, and like what are your goals? What are your goals and dreams for Cope Notes?
So how long have we been around? We're actually coming up on our 3-year anniversary at the end of this month from sending our first text message. So that is exciting. And what was the second part? How long have you been around? Who are you serving?
Who are you serving? Yeah.
We say everybody with a brain. And we have a few different subscriptions. So we have individual subscriptions for like me or you if we wanted to sign up. And then we have gift subscriptions. So like if you wanted to sign up your daughter or your neighbor, or your coworker, and sort of basically show them that you're supporting them, but not have you blow up their phone every day.
Yeah.
And then we have family subscriptions, which is exactly what you think it is, a way to just basically have mental health be kind of a cornerstone of conversation, like your family culture.
I love that. Oh my God. I love that. That's
and
awesome.
then that's new too. We just rolled that out fairly recently. And then we also work with really large groups. So school districts and individual schools, universities. We work with businesses for employee wellness. We work with even governments now, so like counties or states or even individual agencies. Because the thinking is, you asked what our dream is, and the dream is if someone wants Cope Notes, I want them to be able to turn to whatever organization they're already a part of to redeem a subscription. So they'll go, oh, I'll ask my school counselor, I'll ask the YMCA, or I'll ask my gym, and they'll be able to use Cope Notes through all of these channel partners. Because ultimately, Cope Notes is part of a network of care, and we can't do it on our own. So we say we want to come to organizations and fill gaps so that they don't have to do the work, but they still get to be part of that network of care with us.
I love it. I love it. That's so great. Okay, so we answered the goal, the bigger goal. So now during COVID, I feel like there are people that are struggling that aren't willing to talk about it. And as someone who, and I always ask my guests this question, as someone who's navigated your own challenges, if you think Like, if you think about the people who maybe for the first time because of COVID are struggling, what's your message for them?
Welcome to the party. We're happy to have you. Because honestly, I think a lot of people have thought mental health doesn't apply to me. That's an other people thing. And it is a net good. If you are only now realizing that mental health applies to you and it's something you should pay attention to, I am so thankful that you had this realization now versus in 10 years when you're taking it out on your family or it's affecting your work or something. Like, the sooner you find out, the better. So I look at anyone who is becoming aware of their mental and emotional health now, and I say, thank God you're here. I've been waiting for you. Come here. We have chips over here, chips and dip. And over here is like the sweet section. We have some veggies. Like, it is, I think everyone with a brain has been sent an invitation to take care of it, and a lot of people haven't opened the invitation. So it's, a lot of times it takes something like COVID for people to open that invitation and go, wow, I guess this is important. And people like me aren't like, well, if it isn't this person, we're like, come on in. We're so glad that you are now a part of this growing movement of people who are raising awareness about mental health.
Yeah. Just by being you and being willing to talk about it. So you spent many years doing peer support. Tell us about that experience. What did you learn, and what is peer support? Have people understand it? You touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but like, how did that experience shape you?
Well, peer support is literally what happens when you talk to your friends about what's happening with you. And a lot of people will say stuff like, oh, I don't need a therapist. I'll talk to my friends. And I say, that's different. It's important. It's super important, but it's different. And the biggest thing probably that I learned from peer support is, like, when I was attending treatment, I'd go to a therapist, and my therapist was really pretty. She had like pantsuits and stuff, and drove a nice car and had a picture of her family. And she was maybe early 40s. And I just thought, I'm a 15-year-old guy that lifts weights and listens to death metal, and you don't understand anything about my life. You live in a nice neighborhood. And I had such a chip on my shoulder. And then through peer support, you meet people who are like, oh, yeah, I remember when I was hallucinating this. And, oh, I remember when I was going through a really, really bad manic episode, I did this. And I go, oh, well, if you get it, I'm listening. Like, just because of how much of a total brat I was so unwilling to listen to someone who was qualified. I needed to hear from someone who genuinely empathized with me and understood. And the whole thinking behind peer support is, it's not that it has to replace doctors. Like, of course we need doctors, duh. But peer support is a different component. And I never realized how much I wanted to be understood.
Yeah.
And to know that somebody else understood. I told, a buddy of mine just had a very serious health thing happen to him. It was with his heart. He had like a heart attack or a heart something. I can't remember the word. And he had to go to the hospital. And then he was telling me, like, man, it was so scary. And he's young. And I was just like, yeah, I can imagine. Then I said, no, I can't imagine. Like, I've never had a heart issue. I can't imagine how scary that was. And I just thought, man, that's the point of peer support, is
Right.
to talk to someone who goes, dude, I know exactly how scary that was. Like,
Right.
that feeling of community is priceless.
I love that we're talking about this, because I've never covered peer support like this on my show. And I feel like it's really hard when you're in crisis. People might not be comfortable to reach for the clinician, might not know where to go, might be overwhelmed on how am I going to find the right one, and are they in my network and all this. But the thing that you're raising that's really important is peer support could be the stepping stone to just feel gotten first and foremost. Like, if your family doesn't have you feel gotten, the way you can feel like you're understood for what you're dealing with is through a peer support community. Like, like NAMI, for example, that you mentioned. And that's huge for a first step, right?
Yeah, I think specifically of a time when I was on tour with my band. We're in another state. Can't remember what state.
What was the name of your band?
My band is called Prison,
Okay, got it.
like a jail. So if anyone likes metal or rock, you can go on Spotify or Apple Music and look up Prison, or on YouTube. We have some music videos. But you'd be surprised how many people in the metal and hardcore community are like great big teddy bears that have just been stepped on. And so I remember being on tour, and this is outside of the show, and a kid came up to me, because we write a lot about like suicide and mental health, and just talking about those things and framing them in a way that we can all learn from them. And very empathy driven. And I remember being at a show and someone came up to me and said, I empathize with your song about a suicide attempt, and here's what happened to me. And then she was like, why are you not, why are you not going like, oh, poor baby? And I'm like, because I was in that. And I don't want someone to be like, oh, suicide. Don't, oh my word, are you okay? Like I was just like, yeah, that sucks. And she's like, you're treating this kind of nonchalantly. And I'm like, it's not nonchalant, it's that I get it. And then she started crying. She was like, I've never had somebody just treat me normally after I told them about a suicide attempt. They change, their demeanor changes, their body language, and they start babying me. And she's like, you're the first person I've told where you were like, man, that's just awful. And we forget how important that component is, where if someone opens up to us, it's not the worst thing we can do, but it's definitely not the best thing to do, to go into mom mode, which is, that's my instinct.
Yeah.
Go, come here, let me see. But if I just resist that urge and go, that sounds like it sucked, it was super unfair. And they're like, yeah, it was super unfair. Thank you for not treating me like an alien, Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's great advice for people. I did an interview yesterday with my friend Jeremy, and we were talking about, it's having the courage to not step over if someone you know or love is not themselves. It's having the courage to really like ask them. But I think the problem that we have is people feel like they're afraid to ask because they're afraid of the answer, because they're afraid that they're going to have to fix it. And I think that's the biggest misconception. What's your thoughts about that? Because I don't know, I think that is what prevents so many people from extending themselves. What do you think?
I just had a conversation yesterday with someone about this, how if you think the world is on your shoulders, you don't want to step out. And the truth is, it will never be your responsibility to heal someone else's mental or emotional wounds for them. That will never be your responsibility. It will always be your responsibility to contribute. So once you can draw that line and say, wow, if I have an interpersonal relationship, I have a responsibility to this person to set a positive example, to be a positive influence, to be supportive and a good listener and a good friend. If you assume that responsibility, you're golden. The moment you say, I need to save this person, all of a sudden, you've failed both of you. You've failed yourself and your friend. And it sucks because my knuckles literally say, save them. I'm not even joking. So my whole mentality is based on something that I can never do. I can never save somebody. I can't heal somebody else for them, but I can inspire and educate and motivate and support and befriend.
Yeah.
And if I keep an eye on that, it never feels intimidating to have a conversation with someone about mental health, because both of us should know in that conversation that I can't do the work for them. I can help, but I can't do it myself.
Let's talk a little bit more about what you said before about treating them like you're their mother or that they're an alien. I think Talk to us more about that, because I think that's something we all have control over, right? If someone confides in us and says, I've thought about suicide, what not to do, again, is to not like react like you said, right?
I think, now keep in mind, I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a trained crisis counselor. I am not a clinician. So this is all talking from personal lived experience.
Mhm.
I will only say what helped me. I won't say what you should do. I want to be real careful about that.
Yeah.
I'll say that when I shared something like that with friends of mine, which to be fair, I did not do it in a safe and respectful way. I was
Mhm.
like, blah, here's all my junk. And I
Yeah.
expected them to do something with it. What helped me the most is when they asked me qualifying questions. So they would say, when did you start feeling like that? I'd say, well, I guess August or something like that. Well, did something happen that kind of triggered it, or was it just kind of slow? And then the more I started explaining the pain and giving it shape, and it started to take form, and then it started to feel less scary because I go, oh, well, yeah. So my grandma died in August. Now that I think about it, and then I'll share something about my physical health, and they'll say, well, what have you been eating lately? And I was like, well, holy crap, I haven't eaten today at all. I haven't eaten a single thing. So not going into panic mode, but simply asking questions and providing an opportunity for them to self-report.
Yeah.
Like, I've talked myself into connecting with a crisis resource just by a friend asking me questions. I go like, dang, I guess everything that I just told you, like, I need to probably talk to someone who's real trained. And they're like, yep, sounds like a good plan. And they didn't tell me to do crap. They just asked.
Exactly. That's beautiful. That's exactly what I was hoping you would share, instead of like, because we need people to feel like they can be a contribution, they can help, right? And I think it's a lot easier, Johnny, to look away and pretend that someone else will come for them. Someone else will talk to them. They're going to be okay. It's a
Mhm.
lot easier to do that, to make that assumption, than it is to confront and say, how are you?
But I want to say this too. Even though I'm the guy with Save Them tattooed on his knuckles, so I know that it's coming from me. So I'm kicking my own butt here a little bit. But you have to understand that if you make everyone's problem your own problem, you'll do a lot of damage. So
Yeah.
you really have to, instead of dividing and giving, you know, 1% of your attention to 100 people, give 10% of your attention to your 10 closest relationships. And
Right.
that will do much more good, because you can't make a big impact with 1%. But with 10%, you can really be a support. And those strangers, they really are strangers. Most people in our lives, we don't know that well. They're not looking to you like your spouse is or like your cousin is. Like, be there for those people. You're not responsible for humanity. You're
Right.
responsible to and for the people you have strong relationships with.
Yeah. I think you're so right about that. And I just want to thank you, because I think you're adding such value, tremendous value, to people who maybe just don't know what to do. It's really, really helpful. So, quick question about this pandemic. Are you as hopeful as I am that things are going to start to shift because we are so aware of mental health because of being quarantined in the pandemic?
Yes, but I'll qualify that by saying that we have to be careful not to allow this to turn into a bystander effect where it's like, well, people are already getting aware of mental health. I don't have to pitch in. Like, no, now's the freaking time to
Yeah.
pitch in, because people will actually give you the time of day. So if anything, mental health advocates and everyday people who are becoming aware of their mental health, now is not the time to allow the tide to take the conversation where it's going to go. Now's the time to get involved and steer that conversation, because there's actual momentum here.
Yes. Amen. Excellent. So, on that note, people can get in touch with you and Cope Notes through your website down below. Is there anything exciting that you're up to with Cope Notes that we should know about?
Yeah, the family plan is actually kind of, we did a soft launch of it, so we haven't even done a full press release about it. But if you are interested, it's on our website. So that's kind of an inside scoop at the moment. And then also, we are building some super cool new features, and all of the current users. So if you signed up today, you would be part of the process of building those new features by providing feedback and suggesting new options. So we are collaborating with like thousands of users all over the world, from like Uganda and Vietnam to right here in Tampa. And I just encourage anyone, if you're thinking about Cope Notes, if you start with us now, you get to be a part of what Cope Notes is becoming by suggesting those features and providing that feedback. So please join, and I can't wait to see what Cope Notes is going to look like this time next year with all of that feedback.
Amazing. Johnny, thank you so much. Any final words of wisdom that you want to share? You've shared a ton. Anything else you want to leave us with?
I just want to say, if there's anyone listening who's kind of on the fence about whether or not this conversation even applies to them, because probably half the people listening are thinking, oh, I need to send this to my coworker, I need to send this to my sister. No, just consider that it's important for you too. It's not just, you didn't listen to 32 minutes of a conversation for the sake of somebody else alone. You have a stake in this. You are involved, and don't take that invitation and throw it in the recycle bin with all your junk mail. Like, open it up and read it. Like, we are inviting you to participate. Don't hand that to somebody else. Come and bring them as your plus one.
I love it. Johnny, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have met you. I know that the advocacy work that we're both doing, we will definitely be staying in touch. And thank you for all the great work that you're doing in the world. And thank you for Cope Notes.
100%. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll see you soon, my friend.
Aye, aye.